Hello, welcome to WCC Wednesday. Today I am joined by a good friend, Reverend Kelly Nieman Anderson, who just has a breadth of skills, and it's specifically talking about Afghan refugees here in Wisconsin. So Kelly, tell us, who are you? Why did I invite you here today besides the fact that you're really cool? What's the other qualifications?
So my official title is that I am the volunteer coordinator of the Immigration and Refugee Task Force of the Greater Milwaukee Synod of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. And that never fits on my name tag. So just call me Pastor Kelly. And basically, I'm the local person that loves to work with refugees. And I do a lot of things like this because I like to talk about refugees. I've spent 10 years learning about the refugee situation around the world. And thanks to a generous fellowship in 2016, I actually got to travel the nation and the world visiting refugee camps, detention centers, processing facilities, and refugee families across the United States and across the world. I just started as a person who had a couple questions, and now here I am. But don't worry, we will answer your questions, and that will be a good thing.
So we've been hearing all this news. It's been like, and we've actually been getting phone calls at the council, and we've been trying to share a little bit of what we know about the fact that Afghan refugees are coming to Wisconsin. Can you tell us a little bit about what you know about what's happening?
I can, for sure. And we're going to put a link in the Facebook feed about ways that you can specifically help. The first thing that I want to say is refugees have been coming to the United States since the United States was a country. After World War II, the United Nations began to define what refugees are, and the United States began to make a commitment to take refugees every year. But I need to point out that the United States uses the word refugee different than most other countries in the world. In the United States, a refugee is someone who has already been granted a refugee visa by the United States government. A refugee visa is like a green card, but a different color. It is the legal processing by which someone is already approved to come into the United States. So in Wisconsin, when we say Afghan refugees are arriving, we mean legal immigrants from Afghanistan that have received permission to come and will have a legal work permit. In other countries around the world, a refugee is someone who is seeking refuge. We call those asylum seekers. In the United States, a refugee is someone who has received refuge. So good news, the state of Wisconsin is providing refuge to thousands of Afghans who desperately need it. So yay for Wisconsin, we're just awesome, yay. Remind me of the question, Breanna.
But so what's with that?
What's happening?
Yeah, what's happening?
Right. So if any of you remember, after the Vietnam War, a lot of people that had helped the United States government then were being punished for that allegiance in their home country. This is happening now in Afghanistan too. At least 18,000 Afghan persons who worked for the United States government over the past 20 years in a number of legal capacities are now facing persecution in Afghanistan because of their allegiance to the United States. They've already been vetted by the United States military and trained by us because they worked with us over there in Afghanistan. We knew that we would have to help get them out, but we were planning to do that over the next 18 months. Because of a lot of different things, which I am not qualified to discuss, we need to get them all out by next week. And so at this point, we are considering, between the Afghans who worked for the US and their family members, there may be as many as 50,000 Afghans coming to the United States. A few thousand of those will come to Wisconsin. And generally, Wisconsin can resettle a few thousand refugees in about 12 months. We have 12 days. So the reason it's a crisis is we're doing a lot in a short period of time.
So we were talking a little bit beforehand, and you talked about can you tell us about the process of settling someone? Someone arrives on the plane, and what happens?
So traditionally, refugees flee their country and then find their way to a United Nations refugee camp or refugee center in another country that's safe. So for example, folks that were fleeing from Iran and Iraq would often go to, say, Turkey. And then they would do the application process from there, applying first to the United Nations, and then, if they were assigned to the United States, being cleared by us to arrive. That would take anywhere from 18 to 36 months. And when they arrived, they'd get that legal refugee visa, which meant that they now had legal paperwork to rent an apartment, to get a bus pass, to sign their kids up for school, and to get a job. In fact, all refugees are required to work within 12 weeks of arriving and required to get their kids into school pretty quickly too. In this particular case, many of these Afghans have already been vetted by the United States because they worked for us. So what we're trying to do at this point is get them out of Afghanistan. And unfortunately, there are very few safe places that they can walk, boat, or drive to. We need to fly them out of Afghanistan immediately, and that costs money. We can't wait for them to leave Afghanistan and then process them. We need to get them out first. So this is creating a different situation with many of these refugee seekers than we traditionally see. And it's part of why we need a lot of assistance immediately in order to help them.
So we've been getting a lot of calls at the council. We've put some information up on our website, but people are really wanting to help. I think it's part of our Christian call to help people, especially refugees. It's something that people feel really passionate about. So what can people do?
Right now, the biggest need is actually cash donations. Like I said, we're trying to get 50,000 people plane tickets and arriving here with someplace to stay within the next week. Eventually, we will also need in-kind donations and your volunteer time throughout the fall. Throughout October, November, and December, we're going to need specific items and specific volunteer skills donated. But right now, the biggest need is that we've got to get staffing, we've got to get plane tickets, and we've got to get housing for these folks immediately. So there's going to be a link in the comments where you can donate to cover the cost of some of these things. Again, traditionally, we would be able to cover that over a period of weeks and months, and we would fundraise along the way, and the government would also support. This is one of those situations, if you've ever been in a personal emergency in your house, where the emergency happens and then you've got to find the money right away. It's not something that you budgeted for. That's really what we're doing at this point. The original plan was to bring in these 50,000 Afghan refugees over the next couple of years, and instead we need to bring them in a couple of weeks.
So we put a link in the chat. And I think, so if folks wanted to donate now, what should, like, okay, I wrote out a check or I sent some money in.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then what should I do to prepare? Like, I'm really excited about this. I want to, what should I do to prepare for October, November, that sort of thing?
Here's the thing we really need. We need you to tell other people. Right? Regardless of your politics, we want you to be able to say, my church helps people. That's 4 words. And we want you to be able to make donations because you're showing your welcome as a Christian person, as a church person, as a Wisconsin person, as an American, right? We just want you to be welcoming. The other thing is that if you or someone you know is a landlord or has access to dormitory style housing in a gymnasium, a church, a school, a city hall, potentially a facility that is shut down because of COVID, we could use, Lutheran Social Services could use access to that in order to process people. If you are a caterer or have other abilities in order to feed huge groups of people, we want to talk to you. So maybe you know someone like that and you get to convince them because you love refugees. The other thing that we'll need in October, November, and December is volunteers who are willing to come and play with kids, transport people to appointments, teach Afghan women primarily English, and also provide recreation and respite for parents. So there's lots of cool things that are coming up, but those are in the works for sure. In fact, if you want to help with one of those, you can email refugee@lsswis.org. That'll be in the comments too, and we'll get you in the database to help.
Is there a location? Is this just in Milwaukee or is this beyond? Or
Yeah, so Lutheran Social Services of Wisconsin and Upper Michigan is an agency that's been working throughout the state for years and years. And a lot of folks really wonder about the name because Lutheran Social Services is no longer exclusively Lutheran. But back in 1946, when the United States began receiving its first official refugees, 1 out of every 6 refugees around the world was Lutheran, because Lutheran parts of Europe were the most disrupted in the 1940s. And so Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Services, the National American Refugee Resettlement Agency, began to take in a lot of people, and Lutherans in Wisconsin did too. We've been doing that work for so long that now we keep the name, even though a lot of folks that work with us, donate money, and are helped by that organization are not Lutheran. And if, like me, you are Lutheran and you never heard of it, that's okay. I lived 30 years being Lutheran, having no idea what they were doing. So totally no shame here.
Great. Well, this has been like so much information.
Yes.
and also, like, as you said, Kelly said before we kind of went live, that you say you could talk about this for hours and hours.
Oh yeah, for sure. Totes. Do you want to call and chat? We'll get together for
I
coffee.
was gonna say, so I think Kelly is a resource that is in our state who's willing to, well, sorry, I'm just volunteering you, but
I am always willing. Yes.
Willing
I'm
to
available.
talk.
I'll chat with you about refugees.
talk to you. And I think this link that we put in the chat about Lutheran Social Services, they are the experts. I had someone call the council and say, we really want to help, and you're the council of churches, and like, you should know these things. And I said, actually, we're going to direct you to Lutheran Social Services or Jewish Social Services and the people who are experts in this, because this is something that is complicated. It involves working with the government. It involves lots of people. It involves a lot going on.
Yeah, and there are other organizations that work very, very well in other social justice situations, right? So there's times when I really need to do something, and I'm going to be working with the Episcopals. I'm going to be working with the Methodists. I'm going to be working with the Orthodox, because that's what they do really well. So rather than create additional organizations at this time, the best way, if you really are passionate about this, is to learn more from this org. And stay tuned, because WCC might be able to offer a longer webinar sometime in the future with more details and more experts to answer all your questions.
For sure. And we will definitely continue to be posting links and kind of helping get the word out of what is happening, knowing that maybe that our role at WCC is to hold these relationships and help connect people in.
Yeah, the connections are what's super cool about refugees, right? So if your family has a story about an immigrant, a refugee, or an international adoption that just changed your family forever, that's what's happening here, right? We've got a whole group of folks that are going to come to Wisconsin, and hopefully, because of our hospitality, they're going to love it here. They're going to join the workforce, join our schools, join our communities, and be a positive force for good in the years to come. So all we have to do is just be Midwest nice, and it's going to work. Plus a little bit of donations and extra work. But we're going to start with just being nice.
Well, that sounds pretty Christian to me.
It does. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Well, thank you so much, Kelly.
Anytime.
And so pay attention, and we'll keep providing resources.
For sure. Yeah.